Hey guys, it's Megan. First off, thank you guys so much for all of the love and support on my first Barbie video, which if you have not seen that, I'll make sure to link it down below. Like I said in that video, there are still a ton of dolls here that I didn't get to. So in part 2, we're gonna focus on Barbie's brand collaborations. It doesn't seem like they do this as much anymore, but back in like the 90s and the early 2000s, Barbie, she was collabing with everyone from like Little Debbie to Scooby-Doo to just all kinds of stuff. Most of the dolls in this video are going to be from my Aunt Barbie's collection, but there are a couple of my mom's in there too. So again, huge shout out to the both of them for making this video possible. My Aunt Barbie has a bunch of like the TV/movie themed dolls, which I think are so cool. A lot of the dolls that she has were ones that I actually played with growing up. A lot of them are made by Mattel, but she also has a couple from like MGA and Kenner and some of the different doll brands, and I thought some of those were pretty cool too, so I snuck those in as well. Like I said in the last video, I normally make crafts, but I kind of messed up my hand a little bit. I did make a couple of the crafts that I had planned over on my TikTok. I made this necklace, and I also made these earrings, so follow me on TikTok, I guess, if you want. So just like the last time, the Barbie movie was PG-13, this video is PG-13 because I worked way too hard on this to get demonetized. And the last one actually did not get demonetized. I was a little bit scared, but thankfully we're good, so hopefully the YouTube gods will smile on me once again. Anyways, alright, let's just get into it. The first ever celebrity Barbie doll was based off of Twiggy, and her doll came out in 1967. But the oldest celebrity Barbie dolls in my Aunt Barbie's collection are these ones of Donnie and Marie Osmond, and these ones are from 1976. Listen, I don't really know that much about Donnie and Marie. Honestly, I really only know Marie Osmond from like the Nutrisystem commercials, but Donnie and Marie were some of the youngest entertainers to host their own variety show, which started when they were 18 and 16 respectively, and it ran on ABC from 1976 to 1979. The variety show format was super popular during this era. One of my mom's favorites was the Carol Burnett show. I thought this Carol Burnett doll was kind of fun because it looks like they used a more unique face mold for her. Sometimes with the celebrity dolls, they'll use the unique face mold, but a lot of times they like to reuse existing ones. The variety show format was super popular in the 70s. You had everyone from like the Brady Bunch to the Jacksons doing these. Anyways, in the 1980s, Marie Osmond, she was the voice of Rose Petal in the Rose Petal Place cartoon. These dolls were produced by Kenner in 1984, and they're the same people that made the Strawberry Shortcake dolls. These ones are also scented, except for these ones smell like flowers. My Aunt Barbie has, I think, almost all of these, if not all of them. She has Rose Petal, Daffodil, Orchid, Iris, Lily Fair, and Sunny Sunflower, plus quite a few of the fashion packs. In the 80s, it was really common for toy companies to fund animated specials or series that basically only existed to sell things. The Rose Petal Place line had dolls, fashion packs, play sets, lunchboxes, games, stickers, books, cassettes. You'd think with so much merchandise that like it was an actual show, but it wasn't. It was just a 22-minute animated movie, which is pretty much just like one episode of a show. They did release a second one that introduced 6 new characters in 1985, but the line was discontinued before those dolls could hit the shelves. The ethics of advertising to kids has been debated for a long time. In the late 50s, early 60s, brands started to realize that it was actually worthwhile to market products directly to kids on TV. Because as I'm sure most of you know, a kid sees something on TV, they beg and beg their parents for it until the parents are like, okay, fine. Just whatever will get you to shut up. In 1968, an advocacy group called the Action for Children's Television was formed, and their goal was to, quote, stop deceptive advertising practices in children's programming and get rid of what they considered to be violent cartoons. And this group pressured Congress and the FTC so much that in 1969, the networks actually replaced a bunch of the cartoons that this group considered to be like too violent. And I mean, we could debate all day about whether that's right or wrong, but that's the reason that Scooby-Doo exists. To shut up the Karens. So this same group also tried to ban commercials for Flintstones and other like fruit flavored vitamins, which, you know, okay, I get that to a degree because like if you ate the whole bottle, that would not be a good situation. But also, like, have you ever tasted those things? I mean, I guess kids are dumb, but the vitamin makers didn't really fight it. They just withdrew the ads. Let's be real, like most kids, they're not begging their parents to buy vitamins, even if they are Flintstones vitamins, because like I said, they taste like fruit flavored chalk. Like they're not good. And in 1973, this same group pressured the National Association of Broadcasters to make a rule that the hosts of kids' TV shows couldn't appear in advertising, which basically eliminated like all of the locally produced kids shows. Once the advertisers pulled out, they weren't profitable anymore, which sounds very familiar to what happened on YouTube in 2019. In 1978, the group petitioned the FTC to ban all TV advertising to kids under 8, and they also wanted to ban the advertising of high sugar foods to anyone under 12. Coincidentally, this is the same year that Mork and Mindy came out, which has nothing to do with anything, but my mom had the dolls and I thought they were cool, so I thought I would show them. Although I do think that this sitcom was popular with that age group. This was the show that launched Robin Williams' career. I thought it was kind of cool that the Mork doll, he actually still kind of talks. I'm not sure if that's like what he was originally supposed to sound like. I'm just impressed that he still works. Anyways, in 1981, the Reagan administration, they decided to get rid of all of these regulations because I guess they wanted to like boost the economy, which is basically the reason that Rose Petal Place and so many other toy lines and shows from that time period exist in the first place. Which, speaking of scented doll lines, not all of these transitions are perfect, I'm sorry, but I tried my best. Does anyone remember these? Oh my gosh, so the Soda Pop Girls, these are from my Aunt Barbie's collection. These brought back some core memories. I loved these so much when I was a kid. They were originally produced between 2006 and 2008 by MGA, and they were designed by someone named Natasha Sasik. I probably said that wrong, but she posted some of the concept art for the dolls on her ArtStation account, which I thought was really cool. And I thought it was kind of funny, the dolls, they have an expiration date on them, I guess because of the lip gloss. They expired in 2008, so rip. But man, I loved these. Like the lip gloss, it like looked like a little purse. My Aunt Barbie has the 4 original dolls. Apparently there were way more of these dolls than I remember. You had the Soda Pop Girls, the Cream Soda Pop Girls, the Ice Cream Pop, Candy Pop, Flower Pop, Smoothie Pop, Sundae Pop, Snow Cone Pop. They ran this franchise into the ground. Personally, I remember having Gabby Grapelina, Susie Strawbella, Priscilla Vanilla, Harry Cherry Cream, and Candy Coconut Cream. The pet that came with the coconut one, it smelled so bad. It was supposed to smell like popcorn. If you've ever had the popcorn jelly beans, it smelled like how those taste, which in my opinion is not good. But the rest of them were good though. And the only remnant that I could find was this little cherry-shaped hairbrush. But back to the cartoons. One of the longest running Saturday morning cartoon series was the Smurfs. They originally ran on NBC from 1981 to 1989. And this was another cartoon that was like super heavily merchandised. And the reason that I know this is because my Aunt Barbie, she has like a whole giant Smurfs collection. Maybe I'll have to ask her about doing a video about that if they ever do like another Smurfs movie. The Smurfs had movies, video games, cereal. They even had Smurfs on Ice, which was the children's act in the Ice Capade show, which both my mom and my Aunt Barbie both have the Ice Capades Barbies. I think I showed these in the last video, but I wanted to show them again because this was one of the outfits that Ken tossed out of the Mojo Dojo Casa house in the Barbie movie. And apparently they did this whole big TV special for the Ice Capades 50th anniversary. And it featured performances by Barbie and the Super Mario Brothers, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure those are 2 of the big movies that came out this year, wasn't it? And of course, Barbie had to cash in on the 80s cartoon craze as well. In 1987, Deke Entertainment released 2 animated Barbie specials. There was Barbie and the Rockers Out of This World and Barbie and the Sensations Rockin' Back to Earth. The Barbie and the Rockers special was actually supposed to be a pilot for a Barbie animated series, but negotiations between Deke and Mattel fell through, so Deke ended up retooling the series to create Maxie's World, which was a cartoon that was based on Hasbro's Maxie doll line. Apparently Hasbro, they created Maxie to compete with Barbie. But then Barbie, Mattel, they created Jazzy to compete with Maxie. And I think Jazzy won because I think Maxie was discontinued first. And after that, like other than Dance Workout with Barbie, which was a stop motion, Barbie would have to wait until 2001 for her next animated film, which was Barbie and the Nutcracker. And this kind of kicked off like the Barbie movies that people talk about on TikTok. Pretty much. Barbie released a whole bunch of CGI animated movies throughout the early 2000s. Honestly, I think my sister was more into these than I was. Barbie did make a couple more live action appearances throughout the 90s though. To celebrate Barbie's 35th anniversary, they had a live stage show in Epcot between 1993 and 1995. I think Disney did this because they wanted to attract younger guests to the park. The last time that I went to Epcot, they like closed everything to do renovations. Honestly, I would have rather met Barbie. But they had this promotional VHS, which you can find this on YouTube, and there was a deal where you could get the tape for 1 cent with select dolls. The 90s looked like a good time. Mattel and Disney, they go way back. In 1955, which was before Barbie was even created, Mattel invested the company's whole net worth into 52 weeks of advertising during the Mickey Mouse Club. Before this, most toy companies only advertised during the holiday season, and they mainly advertised through different mediums like in-store. But Mattel's investment paid off, and it definitely helped start the trend of advertising directly to kids on TV. In 1988, Mattel secured a licensing deal with the Walt Disney Company, and they produced most, if not all, of Disney's princess dolls between then and 2016. My Aunt Barbie has quite a few of the Disney dolls from this era. She has a couple from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I've never seen this movie. I remember a family friend had like a dress-up costume of this, and I just distinctly remember that because it was my favorite because of like the coins on the skirt, and it was like very swishy and fun. But she also has some Beauty and the Beast dolls, which frankly, these are much better than that like Justin Bieber looking monstrosity from 2017. I think maybe some people's faces just like translate better into dolls, or maybe they couldn't get the paint job right or something. I feel like with a lot of the celebrity dolls, they can kind of go either way. Like this Princess Diana doll. Like, I'm sorry, they did her dirty with that one. Or this That's So Raven doll. This one always bugged me as a kid because I was just like, this does not look like Raven. I read that they reused an existing face mold, so like that might have had something to do with it. And looking at it now, like I can kind of see what they were going for, but I still think that it's a little bit off. And also, okay, so with Raven, they actually did give her like a little bit of a curvier body type, but it's not super obvious. If you look at this and look at like a standard Barbie, you can't really see much of a difference, right? Until you go to change their freaking clothes, which is probably why my Raven doll was still in her original outfit. And she was also a victim of the Barbie hair salon. But Mattel actually lost the license to the Disney princess dolls back in 2016 to Hasbro. And there were a couple different reasons for this. One was that Barbie sales had been declining for a while, and at the end of their licensing period, Mattel was only producing dolls of Belle, Ariel, Cinderella, and for Frozen. Plus, the company released their Ever After High line, which Disney saw as direct competition for their Descendants franchise. And this was a huge loss for the company. I don't know if this was directly related, but around 2016, Mattel seemed to be reducing the product quality in like a lot of their products. I remember seeing people were upset that they reduced the quality of the Monster High dolls. There was the whole like Perma Panties debacle about the American Girl dolls, which I agree made them look cheap. Personally, I was always more of like an American Girl doll girly. I'm sure that surprises no one. I thought these dolls from the American Stories collection were kind of cool. They sort of remind me of American Girl dolls because they came with a little book. We have Pioneer Barbie, Pilgrim Barbie, Colonial Barbie, Patriot Barbie, Civil War Nurse Barbie. I also found this Victorian Barbie, which is not from that collection, but she's definitely giving Samantha, in my opinion. Her box is even shaped like a book. Mattel actually bought American Girl a couple years after these dolls were released, in 1998. I heard they're gonna do a bunch more of the toy-based movies like how they did the Barbie one. The American Girl one, it better be good. That's all I'm saying. If they want somebody to play Molly, I am available. Oh my gosh, does anyone remember those like American Girl stop motions? I was definitely like a little bit old for those, but I still thought they were so cool. I definitely used to watch those. I did try making a couple of my own at one point. They take so long. And speaking of stop motion, my Aunt Barbie, she also has this King Kong doll that I thought was pretty cool. King Kong was the first movie to combine live actors with stop motion. For this scene, the shots that are done from the outside of the building, those were done by making a puppet that looked like the girl to put in King Kong's hand. And for the shots inside, they used a technique called rear projection, which is basically like an early version of a green screen. They would project the footage from behind this like big transparent screen, and since they projected it from behind, there wouldn't be any shadows. Another film famous for its special effects was 1939's The Wizard of Oz. My Aunt Barbie has a ton of dolls based off of this movie. Most of these were from 1999, which would have been the 60th anniversary of the film. I always think that it's so cool to learn how they did the practical effects on movies like this. They used something called Technicolor film, which was a fairly new technology at the time. They originally planned to film the whole thing and then paint like the actual film strips frame by frame for the part where they transition from the sepia tone into color. But they soon realized that that would have been way too expensive, so instead they just ended up painting the farmhouse set. And they used a stand-in for the part where Dorothy opens the door, where it like transitions from the black and white to color. Technicolor film needed a ton of extra lighting. They didn't have LEDs back then, so the temperatures on set would regularly reach about 100 degrees. That couldn't have been easy for Bert Lahr, whose Cowardly Lion costume weighed over 90 pounds. There were a lot of issues with the costumes and makeup on this movie, the makeup especially. An actor named Buddy Ebsen was originally supposed to play the Tin Man, but he was replaced by Jack Haley after he was hospitalized due to a reaction from the aluminum dust that they used for the face paint. And allegedly the studio tried to cover up this incident. They sort of changed the application process a bit, so Jack Haley, he did not know what happened. He just kind of thought that Buddy Ebsen got fired, and since they changed the process, he got out pretty unscathed. He did get an eye infection, but thankfully it didn't affect him as severely. After he recovered from his illness, Buddy Ebsen, he got into a contract dispute with MGM, so he took up sailing during his downtime. And he ended up becoming so good at that he eventually became a lieutenant in the US Coast Guard. He returned to acting in 1949 and landed his most famous role as Jed Clampett in 1962's The Beverly Hillbillies. Ray Bolger's scarecrow makeup also caused some issues. The glued-on mask took about an hour to remove each day, and by the end of production, he was left with lines around his mouth and chin that took more than a year to fade. At least they weren't permanent, but still, that would be kind of annoying. But Margaret Hamilton's green copper-based face paint probably caused the most problems. In this scene where the witch disappears into a cloud of smoke, she was supposed to fall through the trap door before the fire started, but unfortunately the timing ended up being off, and she ended up with third-degree burns on her hands and second-degree burns on her face. Since the makeup was so toxic, it had to be scrubbed off with alcohol. If it had been almost any other color, they could have just gently blotted it off, you know? But since the copper face paint was toxic, she had to endure a really painful removal process. She spent a couple weeks recovering in the hospital. Thankfully, she was okay, but I can only imagine how painful that must have been. I have had second-degree burns, and that was not fun. This poor woman, oh my gosh. It's seriously insane how many things went wrong when they were filming that movie. In the flying monkey scene, to make the monkeys fly, the actors, they were held up in the air by thin piano wires, and the wires, they kept snapping, which caused 2 of the actors minor injuries. I always hear that the flying monkey scene scared a lot of kids. Honestly, I don't really remember the last time I saw The Wizard of Oz. I don't think I was really that bothered. But you know who's not scary? Curious George. I don't really remember what Curious George was about either, to be honest. It's a monkey, and then there's the man with the yellow hat, and they're buddies. That probably is what it's about. But I do remember that there was a book where they made pancakes, and they looked like pretty good pancakes. Does anyone remember that episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch where she gets addicted to pancakes? Apparently this was one of Melissa Joan Hart's favorite episodes of the show. These dolls, they don't exactly look like the actors. We have Sabrina and also Harvey, but I mean, I've seen worse. And they also have some fun features like Sabrina's hand moves and Harvey, his eye winks. They did use some CGI on Sabrina, but they used a lot of practical effects too. With Salem, he was mostly portrayed by an animatronic puppet, but in the earlier seasons, they used real cats a lot more often. They had 12 different cats, and each one had their own talent. One would lay down, or one was good at running. Cats apparently are just not really that easy to work with because they're not really as motivated by treats as dogs are. Once they're full, they're gonna kind of stop cooperating with you. But Sabrina was based on a minor Archie Comics character, and the reason that she originally became so popular was because Filmation Studios couldn't get the rights to make a Bewitched cartoon. So in the Bewitched TV show, to create some of the magic, Elizabeth Montgomery, you know how she would point at something? She would have to stand there with her arm just holding it until production assistants could rearrange the scene. And as you can probably imagine, it was not easy to hold her arm up for that long. So they ended up making her some special crutches to use for the more complicated scenes. Another show from the 1960s that was famous for its special effects was I Dream of Jeannie. And this show was actually specifically created by NBC to compete with Bewitched. Apparently there was a rule around this time that females, they weren't allowed to show their belly button on TV. I guess that's why she had the high-waisted pants. But some shows were able to kind of push past those boundaries a little bit. In season 2 of the original Star Trek, a fan of the show was able to distract the observer from standards and practices, and so she took him out to a long lunch while they were filming the offending scenes. It sounds kind of ridiculous now, but you have to remember, this was back when they couldn't even show married couples sleeping in the same bed together. On the original Addams Family show, they got around this by either showing Morticia or Gomez on the bed. They had a bigger bed, but they just couldn't both be on it at the same time. Barbie's made so many dolls based on movies, TV shows, books. Like I said, the 90s was definitely Barbie's collab era, and she did more than just TV and movie collaborations. For some reason, Barbie's also collaborated with a bunch of like food companies. One of her longest partnerships has been with McDonald's. They actually made full-size McDonald's themed Barbie dolls. Like, that was one of Barbie's careers. Some brands even made exclusive dolls that you could only get after buying a certain number of their products. You would have to collect like a certain number of tokens from the back of a box, and then you would send them in to get some kind of prize. I don't think companies really do that much anymore. But that's how my mom got these Little Debbie Barbie dolls. They ran this promotion in 1992, 1995, 1997. They released a set of mini dolls in 1998. They did one in 1999 and in 2001. Clearly, we are a fan of cupcakes in this house, apparently. So yeah, I think that is everything for part 2. There's still a couple dolls that I didn't really get to just because I couldn't think of how to incorporate them into the script. Also trying to like post more than once a month, and this type of video takes a very long time. I need to find something that is easy to do. Comment any suggestions down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, huge shout out to my Aunt Barbie and to my mom for letting me go through their dolls. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos just like this one. My merch, my website, and all of my social media will be linked down below. I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys later. Bye!